Hi, welcome everyone to our second InTouch talk for the year. This is a series of talks that we've been hosting sort of over the year, and we'll continue moving forwards. It's more of, I guess, an opening up of what UWC is for people who might not be aware of everything, as well as sort of sharing what sort of is going on at Atlantic College at the moment. So again, welcome. For anyone that's just joined, if possible, could you rename yourself just so that we know who's joining us, and if you could mention sort of what your association with UWC Atlantic is, that'd be brilliant as well, whether you're alumni or a parent. Also, just to let everyone know, this session is being recorded and it will be shared on our YouTube channel. So if anyone needs to leave early or is joining late, anything you missed can be caught there, as well as all our other InTouch and In Conversation talks will be hosted. So thank you for joining us. Today is really great. We're joined today by members of the Learning Center here at UWC Atlantic. I'll just sort of a brief introduction of the three of them. So we're joined by Jane Wyatt, who's the college counselor. We're joined by Emma Gaze, who's the additional learning needs coordinator. And finally, we're joined by Maita Sandoval Inglada, who's the English as an additional language coordinator at the college. So they work together as well as a few other members of the staff as part of the Learning Center. And they're, as we sort of say, and as they say, the heart of the student support system at the college. And they're a huge benefit, and they make a massive difference to our student lives. So with all that, I'm going to hand over now to Emma, who'll take the opening. Sorry, just a quick one. If you have any questions, please do pop them in the chat. We'll sort of have the second half of the talk will be sort of a Q&A section. So yeah, if during the talks you could sort of stay on mute and pop any questions or thoughts in the chat, that'd be brilliant. But I'll hand over to Emma now. Thank you.
Thanks, Keith, and thank you for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to be invited to speak with you. So my name's Emma. My role by day is the Additional Learning Needs Coordinator. So my responsibility is to manage the provision for learners with additional learning needs. And I like to think of it as like an umbrella. So all the students have these raindrops of challenges that come down on their learning. And it's just sort of trying to shift the provision that we provide here for learners and their IB to be an inclusive provision and helping them access the curriculum despite what individual needs they may have. So a couple of areas that I support are the specific learning difficulties such as dyslexia, dyscalculia, dyspraxia, and then other challenges such as the attention deficit, autistic spectrum disorder, and so forth. I liaise daily with the medical centre. As we all know, being human beings, we have health issues that often implicate our day-to-day role, and this applies to the students too. So if they've perhaps had a shift in medication that's implicating them in some way, I will work with them in communicating with teachers and support staff in making sure that their day-to-day experience here at UWC Atlantic feels equal and it's well supported. So a little bit about my day-to-day role within the TLC. So in the afternoon, I host tutorials with individual students. These tutorials cover a range of things and it depends on the need of the student. If you have students with time management difficulties or organisation, perhaps we'll schedule a workload schedule for them to help conquer the IB tasks that come at them. In addition to that, I work with them on assignments. So perhaps for those with reading and writing challenges, we use assisted technology within the TLC to help them scribe what they wish to say on paper, and perhaps it's not as easy to transcribe themselves. So I will assist them with that. In the mornings, I tend to update the IDP syllabus that we have, which I'll get onto in a minute. Other than that, I go into the classroom. So if we have an identified class that has quite a range of individual needs, I will go in and support those students with perhaps classroom management, helping them deal with the classroom environment, as well as looking at their work and supporting them hands-on. And I think that that's a real useful strategy that we've tried this year. The IDP is a provision outlined by the Welsh Assembly Government. So although we are an international setting, we do mirror the Welsh Government advice. IDP stands for an Individual Development Plan. So this document outlines the needs of students, as well as their challenges and their strengths. Most importantly, it will have a range of targets and a list of support strategies that staff can do and carry out to help those students in meeting those targets for development. It used to be the educational plan, however, it's changed to development because it is important to support the student holistically. If you have emotional needs or behavioural needs perhaps, and especially with attention deficit, you may have classroom management strategies that need to be supported by the teacher, or at least have that awareness of that student's need. We're able to outline that in the document so that teaching staff, support staff, the wider college staff are aware of that individual's needs. And the documents are created by myself, the parent, and the student. This provides a holistic view and perhaps a little bit more of a previous education knowledge. So what support they've had so far and what they need moving forward. This process is continuously developed. We've introduced a learner profile this year that gives a greater insight to the student's background. Through my recent course of an international special educational needs coordination, I've realised more than ever how hard it is to encourage students within an international setting to reach out for the support they so rightly should access. This is because hosting an international setting is great. However, there are many cultural attitudes and perceptions of academic weakness associated with additional learning needs. Students come from a range of cultures here, and some of those cultures deem having dyslexia or attention deficit a weakness on their academic profile, and it's far from that. You know, it's about making the box fit them rather than trying to make them fit that one box. And I'm really passionate about spreading that, and I think through UWC and at the TLC in particular, we've really worked hard to remove those boundaries and encourage students to come in, whether it be one-to-one or in a group format. So another element of my role is exam support. So when it comes up to the time of exams for either IB1 or IB2, myself, Jane, Jess and Maite host a range of exam support workshops. These cover revision strategies, time management, identifying panic and stress, and working through those things. I'm sure Jane will go into a little bit more detail, but working through those things with strategies and discussing it as a group, because for many students, it's about realizing that they're not the only ones in those positions. You know, they're all in it together, and it's getting through it and then cheering each other on at the end. And we like to be part of that in the TLC. I also file and work with the IB inclusion team to coordinate the exam arrangements for students. So many students arrive at UWC, some with diagnosed additional needs and some without. So the lead up to November is quite a busy time. I work with the students in assessing their needs, identifying what exam arrangements may be useful or beneficial for them, and then we apply for them through the IB inclusion team. These are usually granted based on the assessment evidence that we can provide, but if a student was to apply with additional learning needs, the more evidence of need upon admission, the better. And yeah, so working day to day with the students is my main role and the part that I enjoy the most. I think as much as I'm able to share strategies with them, I really love listening to them and hearing about individual learning styles that they bring to UWC, because the diversity is humongous. I mentioned that my role is additional learning needs coordinator by day, and at night I'm the house parent, and in the middle I'm the tutor. So this has given me a great insight into lots of issues that may impact students. You know, I mentioned earlier with behavioural, emotional things that might be going through the college, and that gives me a really good insight to what's going on for the students. Of course, there's things I still don't know, but it's given me a greater step into the life of a student, and my aim is to support them. So that's me so far. Thank you for listening. I look forward to any questions at the end.
Thank you very much, Emma. It's always wonderful to hear sort of all the different channels that students can go through. Maita, do you want to go next?
Hello, my name's Maita. I'm the EL teacher at Atlantic College. I'm also a UWC graduate. I attended UWC Mahindra College between 2009 and 2011. And I left India after I would say 3 months of intensive traveling, but I never left UWC. And I want to say this because I've been collaborating with my national committee ever since my graduation in 2011. And I joined UWC Atlantic in September 2020. And it's been a fascinating journey, and I'd like to share my experience with you today. I'm a linguist by training, so I will start by talking a little bit about the importance of multilingualism in the school. With over 90 or 95 nationalities, we celebrate linguistic diversity, and multilingualism is at the heart of the school. And we'd like to recognise the role that language plays in social cohesion and cultural understanding. But despite the fact that most classes are taught in English, the vast majority of our students are speakers of other languages: Arabic, Japanese, Spanish, Chinese, and many other languages too, French. It's a long list. Undeniably, living and studying in a foreign language is a fascinating and rewarding experience, but it can also be a big challenge for many students at UWC Atlantic. And that's where I come in. We think that at UWC Atlantic we have to, well, it's vital that we support our students so that they can access the curriculum and they can achieve their highest academic and personal potential. So my role as an EL teacher is to orchestrate this provision and deliver language support so that everyone in the school can access the curriculum, the co-curricular program, and last but not least, the social life at the school. And we have a very active learning support network with the learning support team and the TLC, Emma, and counsellors and other people too. I will tell you more about them in a minute. And yeah, so my role starts, before the academic year, with those students that have been identified as those in need of most intensive support, who then join what we call the EAL support group, which means that they attend a pre-induction or pre-program where we work on the language. And once the year starts, in addition to receiving English B classes, they also receive weekly one-to-one support, and they have an IDP recorded, an individual development plan. I couldn't hear Emma's presentation because my internet was quite poor, but it's very similar to what Emma does with additional learning needs. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. So throughout the academic year, I work with admissions, tutors, teachers, and the wider TLC network, of course, to produce an action plan based on the identified needs of EEL students, so we can monitor their progress and attainment. As Emma was saying, we have a huge diversity in our school, and because we have so many languages, we also need to understand that they learn differently, and because they all have to learn in English through English, I also need to adapt the way I teach and also the way I speak to them, so that they learn more and make the most of their experience. To give you some examples, some of the strategies and support that I provide are English classes, in-class support. So I may attend biology lessons and take notes for the student, reading and writing workshops to read and write more efficiently, proofreading of assignments, help with homework, and also creating and adapting learning materials. Sometimes they have to read very lengthy but also interesting texts, but EAL students find it extremely daunting and difficult. So part of my job is to go through these texts and adapt them so that they are a bit more accessible. And also other teachers do this job too, so it's not just me. All together create these materials so that they can still follow the program. And something that is quite positive is that by the time the EAL students join the second year, start their second year, they become independent users of the language of English. And as a result, they can operate across the curriculum without needing much assistance. So what that means is that they gradually develop their linguistic skills and can build up their confidence throughout the 2-year program. But more than the IB and academics, EAL support is also about developing the confidence to communicate and access a lifetime of enriching experiences and opportunities at UWC Atlantic. In fact, I like to view the EAL provision as a holistic approach with 3 main focus areas: language development, of course, academic achievement, but also the social integration of EAL learners. When we talk about EAL provision, we often think of the first 2 concepts, and obviously language development is an indispensable tool for academic achievement. However, I'd like to highlight the importance of the 3rd concept, social integration. So the academic and social participation of all students, including EAL students, in all school activities, whether in the classroom, in the houses, in councils and school events. This year, despite COVID, we have organized different EAL bonding sessions, the International Mother Tongue Week to raise awareness about different languages, language guide sessions, and EAL walks off campus when permitted. I'd like to tell you more about language guides. This is a survey I run at the school, and essentially it's surveys based on campus to provide language support to students. With regular training and monitoring, around 16 and 20 students are language guides, and that means they provide tutoring services to other students, and I monitor and coordinate that. And they get to motivate other students and teach them all the languages, but also those who are EAL learners, English as a second language, they get to practice and have other conversations with peers and improve their language skills. Yeah, that's I would say a brief summary of what I do, but none of this would be possible with the team, the TLC team, and teachers, tutors, house parents. I'm also a house parent. I joined the team in April, and it's fascinating to see students in the houses and see how they grow outside the classroom. And yeah, I think it is a good way of understanding EAL students from a different perspective. And that's it. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Jane, would you like to go?
Okay, hello, good afternoon from Wales. I'm Jane. I'm one of the counsellors here at Atlantic College. My colleague Jess, there's 2 of us in the counselling service at Atlantic College, and we provide counselling for the students to support their emotional well-being. So between us, we cover the week of counselling that's available to students. We're very much part of the TLC, and listening to Emma and to Mighty, it's really, if you can imagine, one of the things that a lot of students struggle with is, for those that have a learning difficulty in some way or other that has an impact on their education, that can have an impact on them emotionally and socially. For those students that are sometimes struggling with English, That has an impact on their ability to impact on their self-esteem, and it has an impact on their ability to socialise in events or in the dorm or, you know, in their house. And so there's a real link between all of these, and I think Emma and Matthew, we would agree that we work very closely together. Sometimes the student will come to us and we will refer on then to EAL or to ALN. So we do work very closely as a team. As Jess and I are very much part of the wellbeing team as well. So the wellbeing team is made up of our designated safeguarding lead, so that's Bernie, and also our health centre staff, Eileen, who's the nurse, and Kay, who's the nursing assistant. So we meet every week as a wellbeing team, and that's a very sort of tight, confidential team that looks after the students in a holistic way, in terms of their social well-being, their emotional well-being, and obviously their physical well-being. So that feels like a very tight net that supports students, and we monitor their well-being. Anybody that sort of comes on our radar through any of those areas, then we monitor that on a regular basis. So how do students refer to us? Students can refer themselves to the counselling team. They just need to email us and say that they're struggling at the moment, and usually within a week we can see them. If a student is in crisis, or a student is referred by their tutor or by their house parent or by the wellbeing team, then obviously we would see them straight away. But that doesn't happen very often. Usually students self-refer. What we provide then is a confidential service. We clearly contract with the students, so that they know that what they talk about in the counselling is a safe space, it's a confidential space, it's not going to go back to their tutor or their house parent or anybody. You know, there are exceptions to that. If we're ever concerned that a student is at significant risk, then that's when we would breach that confidentiality and we would involve the people that we need to involve. That might be the health centre, that might be our general practitioner, our doctor, that might be Bernie from a safeguarding point of view. So that's made really clear to students right from the very beginning about what we keep confidential and what we need to share. And what we do is we include the student in all of those sort of decision-making process so that they feel included throughout the process. So that's the way that they refer. They usually come to see us for a first session, and then we decide whether counselling is the right thing for them. Perhaps it is more to do with learning support, perhaps it's a health issue and we would refer them to the wellbeing centre. But if not, we initially offer 6 sessions. That's very flexible. We offer sessions during students' free time so they don't miss lessons or any activities, and we, you know, that 6 sessions can be extended, and often what will happen, sometimes students will come for us for 4 or 5 sessions and think, you know, I'm all right now, and then next term they might come and see us again for another couple of sessions. So it is very flexible and it's very sort of student-led in that way. And like I said, we provide this sort of confidential space so that we recognise that students need somewhere that's perhaps outside of their dormitory, outside of their house, outside of their classroom, where they can speak in confidence about how they're getting on. And I think if we look, I've got some figures later if you want to see them, but you know, in terms of the presenting issues, the reasons why students come to counselling, one of the most significant ones is to do with relationships at AC. And as I'm sure you can imagine, that's really the same for any adolescent. This is a time in their life where they're trying to find out who they are, their identity, their sense of self, what direction they're going in, but also very much about relationships. That might be romantic relationships, it might be to do with friendships. So the presenting issues that we work with at Atlantic College, we do have things like homesickness, particularly in the first term. But other than that, those issues are probably reflective of what you would be seeing in any school for any young person of this age group. So there's nothing particularly that we would say is different at AC. The language is an issue, and I think, like I said, that can have an impact on their sense of identity and their self-esteem, but that's something that we work through. So the other thing that Jess and I are involved in, both I support the peer listeners. So our peer listeners at AC are there's 2 peer listeners in each house, usually a male and a female, and we train the students to support their peers. They have quite detailed training in safeguarding, in confidentiality. We make sure that they are not overloaded. I meet with them every week. I supervise them. I train them in listening skills. And then this year, our queer listeners have also been made part of the service at AC, and Jess will be working with the queer listeners. So in terms of the pastoral support that's available for students, they can go and see a peer listener, they can go and see a queer listener, they can go and see their house parent, they can come and see a counsellor, the safeguarding lead, they can pop up to the health centre. There's a whole range of places. What we want is that students feel safe to go to an adult at AC. So we work very closely with the queer listeners and the peer listeners, and also WELCO. So WELCO is the Wellbeing Council, and they promote wellbeing at Atlantic College, and we work with them too. The other sort of things that we get involved with this year, we were very excited to get involved with Project Week, and what we did is we created, the students worked with a film company to create a film on consent. And it was called Just Ask, and it was a very simple film, but it really just showed the way that we need to ask each other if we want to share things, if we're in relationships. It wasn't just about sexual consent, it was about living together and respecting each other. And the students did a fabulous job. And so we've made the film, that's now completed, and it's been going to be sent across UWC colleges so that it can be used as a teaching tool for other UWCs. So we were really pleased to be involved in that. The other thing that Jess and I are involved is life skills. So in the first term, all first years have 3 life skills sessions, and they're on things like relationships, assertiveness, peer pressure, again, consent, those sorts of things where we make sure that students know who to go to if they're feeling concerned or feeling uncomfortable, and that they know about the culture at AC, which is a culture that we try to promote, which is a culture where students feel safe. So we do life skills. As Emma said, we also do exam workshops at certain times of the year to try and support students in their sort of anxiety around exams. The other thing that in terms of life skills, this year we had a student-led project where students wanted to go into houses and to talk to students on a sort of peer-led basis around consent and what their understanding is. We also had in-house discussions on drug and alcohol that again was sort of supported by staff but student-led. So we're trying more and more to involve students while also having that adult presence there to make sure that the right message is being put across. We're also involved in the sort of GSP, the selection programme, and for students that are perhaps flagged up as perhaps having some mild mental health problem or some stress related problem before they come to AC, then Jess or I will contact them like this on Zoom and just spend half an hour chatting with them, looking at their needs, looking at how we can support them. And that's the really important thing that we would say to any new parents is, you know, if a student has an area where they feel a bit challenged, whether that might be low mood or it might be anxiety, that's fine. We can manage that as long as we know what's happening. And then what we do is we arrange to meet with that student in the first week or so that we set up that relationship and they know where to find us if they struggle the rest of the time in Atlantic College. Both Jess and I support the house parents. As you can imagine, looking after 50 young people in a house is challenging, and our house parents do an amazing job. But we meet with house parents probably once every half term to support and supervise them, and again give a house parent that safe space where they can come and offload or just, you know, discuss the challenges that they're facing. So that's what we're there for. So we work closely with the house parents, we work closely with the learning support team, and with the safeguarding team, the wellbeing team. So I think we've become quite an integral part of the college. I've got some slides, but rather than show the slides, Keith, I was just thinking in terms of the presenting issues that people might be interested in, that the main thing that people come to see us, students come to see us, like I said, is about relationships at college. The other thing then would be sort of low mood and anxiety. That sort of feeling a bit fed up, feeling a bit low. Students are often affected by academic work, by the stress of academic work, and that can be something to do with anxiety too. Sometimes what they're coming to us with is those sort of strains of academic work. We have very ambitious students who really want to do very well, and sometimes this can become a bit overwhelming for them. So we try to work in a very holistic way to make sure that they have a healthy balance in their life, that they can socialize, they can work, they can sleep, they can eat and exercise. So it is very much a sort of holistic approach. In terms of those times of year when students come, we had a sort of spike round about November last year, but that was because we couldn't have half term because of COVID. And so some students were starting to feel a bit fed up, being caged in and just struggling with that. And perhaps struggling with some of their relationships too. You know, the students this year have done an amazing job in managing COVID. The staff have done a fabulous job in supporting them. And we have lots of opportunities at AC, you know, for them to do things, but they weren't allowed off campus, as you probably know. And so that created its own tension. But they, you know, they created their own activities to do that. I was just thinking of from a well-being point of view, you know, two initiatives that were developed this year. One of them was Hideout. And Hideout is an activity on a Friday night that Welco have promoted. And that's a quiet place where students can go and socialise on a Friday night. And it's something that's different from social, where there's music and dancing and that sort of usual busyness there. And that's been incredibly successful. And then the other one is the restaurant that the students have created. And that's been a great opportunity for students to meet and to be on campus. And so I think they've developed those things that really have developed their well-being, and they found ways to look after themselves. And I guess that's what we're trying to promote as counsellors. We're trying to promote their resilience, their well-being as they navigate this sort of tricky time of life for them. So yeah, I'm here to answer any questions. If anybody else has got any questions, like Emma and Mighty, fire away.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Jane. Yeah, as mentioned, if anyone has any questions for any of them, please do pop them in the chat, and we can sort of run through any of them. As you can see, for the students, there's a lot of avenues and a lot of channels for them to sort of reach out if they're having sort of any concerns or worries about anything, or just if they want to have a chat with someone that's a bit different. I'll just check. Yeah, so Jay, I'm not sure if you wanted to sort of show anything from the presentation, such as sort of the chart of all the different things that people sort of.
Yeah, I can do that. Okay, no problem.
Let me just share that. Yep.
Okay, thank you. So yes, what you can see here in terms of, like I said before, this main area here are relationships at college. That's probably the biggest thing that students would come. The blue line here is academic. Yeah, so but it's the relationships at college that is probably one of the main things. And that has an impact then, as you can imagine, on low mood and anxiety. So sometimes what this graph shows you is what the students present with. And so that would be what they present with in their first session. But that doesn't mean to say that somebody might come to us and sort of say, actually, I'm feeling quite low. But the reason that they're feeling low might be relationships at college, or it might be academic. What you've got here too is discipline. Okay, and I just wanted to just explain that a little bit. Jess and I, as part of the counselling team, support. So if there is an incident in college that involves a discipline, you know, a significant disciplinary incident in college, Jess and I are there to support both sides of that. So if, for example, there's a consent issue, or there may be a significant discipline issue, Jess and I are there to support the students, whether they are, you know, a perpetrator, for want of a better word, or whether they feel as though they're the victim of that. So that has increased slightly, but I think that's increased slightly because I think students are using the counselling service more. Not that there's an increase in discipline issues, but that's really good that we can support students when they're going through those difficult times, and we do that in a very non-judgmental way. So in a way, Jess and I keep completely outside of discipline. We don't have any say in what happens with students in terms of the code of conduct. We are there to support the students. As you can see, sleep is there. Sometimes students are struggling with sleep. That is a small amount, but it is something that students come with. And then further down here are relationships at home. So that might be something to do with you know, perhaps parents are struggling at home, students are struggling with their relationship with their parents. So that would be the type of thing that would be involved there. Thank you, Keith. If you want to give the numbers, that might be the other one.
Yeah.
Which is the one before this, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So what we've got here are the numbers and we've broken these down because of the lockdown. So the red figures here are last year's up until lockdown, and then we saw students up until the 1st of May, but both Jess and I worked with students online all the way through lockdown. And we've also been able to work with students during isolation. So as you may know, students came into college in September and in January and were isolated for a number of weeks. The college has managed COVID in an amazing way. We've been an incredibly safe campus and students have respected that. But it has meant, because of working online like this, that Jess and I have been able to work with students when they were at home during lockdown last year and during isolation here at college. What I just want to point out here is the number of counselling sessions has increased slightly. If you just go back to 2017 and 18, so we're double the number of counselling sessions that we're seeing now. That's because Jess joined us, so there was just myself at this stage, and we've doubled the number of counsellors, so we've doubled the number of counselling sessions that are available. But it's the number of sessions that has increased rather than the number of students. If you can see up here, so we've had 135 students here versus 149. What we're thinking along here is, because of COVID, because students were isolated, because students were unable to go home perhaps for weekends, and some of our students stayed over Christmas, that students have valued that adult connection, I think. And so we've probably seen students for longer. So we haven't perhaps seen a lot more students, but those students that have come have perhaps stayed with the counselling service a little bit longer. The other thing I just wanted to mention is the drop-ins down here. On a Thursday night, we have a drop-in. So that's not counselling, that's for just students to pop in. They can see Jess and they maybe make a counselling appointment, or it may be just a sort of 15-minute chat. Okay.
Brilliant. We've had someone send in a question. This one I think might actually be best for Emma. Emma, is there any sort of, well, this is to do, yeah, sorry. Are there any hints or sort of things that people or tutors look out for that may raise the fact that students may suffer from dyslexia or dyspraxia? Because I know that you mentioned you sort of do sort of I guess assessments to an extent, but if something gets missed, is there something for other people that they can notice, or like tutors that might notice?
So yeah, that's a really good question. So I often liaise with the teachers and the tutors. Quite a lot of my referrals come through either from a tutor or a class teacher, depending on the area of difficulty. A tutor will often receive feedback on a student's progress, perhaps looking at deadlines, time management, submitting work, or perhaps just a pattern of behaviour within the classroom. Then they'll get in touch with me after speaking with the student themselves and suggest that perhaps the student and myself arrange a time to catch up and just have a talk, an informal talk within the TLC, and then we go from there. With regards to dyslexia, this year we've had a significant increase of students needing to use the laptop. Of course, with lockdown and the implication of COVID, lots of students went online early last year and have stayed online since. So their writing speed and things we're able to assess in the college and then put them onto a computer for their examinations to make sure that they're not at a disadvantage from that. With specific learning difficulties, so such as cognitive processing, speed of writing, reading, or perhaps speech and language, we source our assessments through an external agency. We've worked with this agency for a long time, so the relationships are really good. And the students have always welcomed meeting them because they're very approachable, and I think it's put the students at ease. And following that assessment, we have quite a comprehensive report studying different areas and the standardized scores for that. So with regards to a tutor role, they would perhaps send in the referral to me, and then we investigate deeper, and it's up to the student then what element or what part of that information is shared, because the student may want to find out more about their learning style, but it may take a little bit of time for them to want to share it with their tutors. So the tutors are definitely integral in identifying these things. And it's just about working together. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, I did. I mean, there was a follow-up question about, is there enough support out there from external bodies to support training? I think you briefly touched on it, saying sort of the outside assessors, but is there, I guess, externally enough to help with the students?
With regards to additional learning needs?
Yeah.
So there is external training. Of course, the last 18 months has ruled that out a little bit with COVID. However, we're looking to implement staff training and student awareness days to help the college body as a whole familiarise and identify these areas of learning challenge. So perhaps it could be attention deficit, or maybe it's just that the way we're learning isn't quite the right fit for us. So it's about differentiating that and investigating it, providing students and teachers with those strategies to identify it rather than presume and then automatically go down that route. With regards to the specific learning difficulties, I mentioned the agency that we use for assessment. They always offer a follow-up appointment with the student should the student wish to go through it a little bit more and learn about these different strategies and areas that have been identified as a weakness. And we offer it within the TLC also. So we hope to expand the external agency support, COVID permitting. So yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. We've had a question from Nadine. Do you want to unmute yourself and ask the question, Nadine? Hi, Nadine.
Hi, I'm a parent, and I think it's amazing what you offer on all different levels for the children, the house parents, for the whole groups and everybody. So very nice to hear and to really see how much you do on so many levels. So thank you very much for all this amazing effort. First of all, I'm really amazed by this. And I think it's at the same time, it's not fully known by parents of how much you do and how much support there is. So that's my question is basically around this. Do parents know about this service preschool that you provide for children with issues that already exist? And also, I heard from parents during the year when they talk to their children and issues arise, they don't really know who to contact for counseling or any mental health support. So that would be, because there's so much that you offer, would be so great if they would be more aware of all this that you're doing. Would it be possible, or is it difficult to organize maybe?
Keith, would you like me to answer that?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Hi, Nadine. Hi, and thank you for your compliments at the beginning there. Thank you. I think a parent, from a parent's point of view, they can contact house parents, they can contact tutors, they can contact the health centre at any time if they're concerned about their daughter or their son. You know, I think if a parent has a conversation with the student and is really worried about it, and I know, you know, as a parent, children will go, oh, I'm fine. So I think a parent can contact anybody that's involved with the student. From the counselling point of view, we always say to students that our sessions are confidential. So if a parent contacts me, for example, and says, I understand you are seeing my son or my daughter, can you tell me how they're getting on? What I would always do is go back to the student and say, you know, your mum or your dad has contacted us, they're worried about you. I'd like to be able to, you know, write back to them. What would you like me to say? And we agree that together, so that there's always that transparency. But I hear what you're saying, Nadine, in terms of, do parents know what's available? And I guess in joining papers and things like that, we would have the information in terms of where students can go and the well-being that is offered to them. But it sounds as though there's a bit more needed there in terms of who to contact about what. Would that be right?
Yeah, that would be great. I think, yeah, of course, the privacy is very crucial, right? In your contact with the students, so that's understandable. And great. So it's more, yeah, how to, but in case of an emergency that parents do have a concern, it might be good to know how to contact you, or this preschool service, which is, I think, amazing too, that you already try to see how to support children. And
I think, I mean, interesting, Nadine, the preschool, contacting a student before, that usually comes through the selection programme. So, but it doesn't always come through the national committees. Okay. So the selection programme would flag up, because the students that go through the global selection programme go through a psychometric test, and that would flag up anything that we were concerned about. You know, that the selection committee would be concerned about, and then whichever college they are referred to, the counsellor would then would then contact the student. I mean, I've contacted probably about 6 people this year before they start in September. But unfortunately, that doesn't happen through the national committees in the same way. It is something that we're working on, because we would like to standardise that across all national committees. Because what we don't want to do is, sometimes the worry is that parents or students won't put things in their joining letters to say they sometimes struggle with their low mood, because they're scared that they will be targeted, or they will be seen, you know, judged in a sense. And we would always say, please just tell us, because then we can give that support sooner rather than later. Yeah, because
that's a bit, I think, because there's always a bit of shame around it, right? So,
yes. Yes, sadly. Yeah, so sadly, I think you're right.
Yeah, maybe as a parent, I think it would be, it would be nice to know, if you already know, maybe my child needs some extra support here and there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
And also all the things you organize afterwards, right? When there are issues happening, and that you do organize, what you just told me, also you go into the house and discuss the things with the group.
Yes.
Yeah, all these amazing things that you do, are also good for parents to know, because sometimes I think there's worry because they don't know what's all happening, and just calms them maybe down to know that you're working on so many different levels and in collaboration with everybody, and it's just good to know. I think it's very comforting and calming to know.
Yes, yes. And I'm guessing, Nadine, that most students don't tell their parents that.
No, I don't think so. No, it's probably, psychology is not a cool subject, I think.
It's not. But it could be something that we put in the parents' newsletter. This is what we've done from a well-being point of view this month or something.
Great. Thank you so much for your answer.
That's okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nadine. We've had a question come in, which I think might be best for Maita. With such a variety of EAL needs, how might it be possible to identify the best approach or approaches per student or per student group? And also, how much work do you guys do alongside sort of the English teacher, and what's the sort of the overlap for that?
Okay, Keith, I need you to repeat the last bit of the first question because I didn't hear it quite well.
And also, how much work do you do alongside sort of the English teachers rather than just the, I guess, the other language teachers? Sorry.
All right, so it is very difficult. There is a form that we send out through admissions to all national committees and all students joining the school. It's a learner profile that includes questions about ALN and language. And this year we've reviewed that form to make it more comprehensive and also easier for us to identify language issues, English language issues. So one thing that we do is that we ask the student the languages that they use with their friends in the school, with their parents, and then we send a language level test. This is new from this year, and we've just evaluated the answers. And once we analyze the results, we invite them to the pre-induction program. And then we look at the language diversity that we have, whether it's mainly a language or different languages. Because I'm trained in linguistics and I have a background in international context, I know that teaching English to students from different backgrounds, it's complicated and it's challenging. But it's about understanding how different languages learn English and how different students acquire the language. I'm not sure that answers the first question. I can expand a little bit more. We work constantly with other language teachers, whether they are English teachers or any second language teachers. So, for example, with English teachers, before they start their lessons in September, they write another essay. And based on the results of that essay, we place them in a different group, in a different English class, whether it's English B or English A. English A entails studying literature and also language, but English B is mostly for second language acquisition. If a student is struggling in language A, we need to explore whether that's due to maybe poor understanding of literature or poor understanding of language analysis, or whether that's a problem of language acquisition itself. And then we review the situation and the student might drop to language B so that the student can learn the language better and feel more comfortable. There are other teachers collaborating with the TLC, which means that we are in constant communication, we share materials. Some of the EEL students, due to COVID, for example, this year, some EEL students had to be outside the EEL core group or outside the EEL class, but I still collaborated with with the teachers, and I supported the students very closely. So yeah, we're a great team. And we share materials all the time and we make sure we're updated. It's true that for the EEL class, we follow a different curriculum for 6 months to 1 year, depending on the group, because in case they come with very, very little English, it's very difficult to follow the IB curriculum. And the approach of the school is to divert the focus a little bit at the beginning so that they focus on learning the language and experiencing life at the school. And then we shift the focus back to the IB so that they can complete the curriculum. And this has proven to be very successful. And for example, this year, some of the EEL students achieved very high grades in English B. So although they may think that they are at disadvantage, they do learn very quickly and they apply themselves so much, and it's beautiful to see them succeed.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much. I think that's about all the time we have today. Thank you everyone for joining. We hope you enjoyed this. As I mentioned, this InTouch series of talk is something we're hosting throughout the year. The next one won't be till sort of just after the start of the next academic year, but we'll share more information about that down the line. But once again, thank you for joining us, and thank you, Emma, Maita, and Jane. It's really wonderful hearing all the different things that students have available. I think a lot of us, even those that are associated with school, don't realize just how much you guys do. So thank you. And yeah, we hope everyone enjoyed it, and we hope you join us for the next one. Brilliant. Thank you, everyone.